Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Guthels, and I am very excited to be bringing you a student zone session to this main build digital breakout. The student zone is a place for 14 to 21-year-old students to find content that we've curated, created, and designed just for them. And if you fall outside of that age range or aren't technically a student, it's a great place to find that introductory content. And we wanted to give you a taste for that. Before we get started, I do want to remind you of our code of conduct for Build 2020. Basically, be nice, let's be friends, be kind. We're all here to find community, find friends, and learn. So let's do that. And now it is my pleasure to introduce InstaFluff, who's known as the comfiest live coder and mug chef on Twitch. And today, InstaFluff is going to be telling us a little bit about how you can make an AI with no code at all. InstaFluff, I'll give it over to you.
Cool. Hello. How's it going, everybody? Welcome in, and hope you guys have been enjoying Microsoft Build so far. I am InstaFluff. I'm the comfiest coder or mug chef, or sometimes I'm known as Buttercup because I've exploded butter in a microwave before while making a mug recipe. And so if you guys want to check out some of that kind of stuff, you can also check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/InstaFluff. And today what we're going to do is we're going to create an app. We're going to create an AI bot without writing any code at all to take our normal conversational words like just our normal phrases and have a bot interact and understand what we're trying to get it to do and understand their words. And so to do that, we're going to be using a service from Azure called Luis. It stands for Language Understanding Intent Service. And so how it works is it takes example sentences, or we call them utterances, and then we're going to see if we can create a weather app. And then afterwards, I'll tell you and I'll show you guys how we can make it even more custom so that we can do even more custom and different multiple different kinds of intents or actions that we wanted to do. So to give you guys an example, we have Sherman here. Sherman is a character on my stream on Twitch, and he's actually built with Luis in the background, in the back end, and he understands what I say. And so like, hey Sherman, can you tell me the weather in Seattle? Hey Sherman, tell me the weather in Seattle, please.
You're pretty cool for a human.
Oh, sometimes he doesn't like to listen to me. But I'll try one more time. Hey Sherman, tell me the weather in Seattle.
The weather in Seattle is
there he
overcast
goes.
clouds and there's 11 degrees Celsius or 52
so we'll be
degrees
building
Fahrenheit.
something like that live without writing any piece of code. And so let's get started. All right. And so let's go to the coding scene. If you guys want to check out more live coding like this, you can actually check out not just me, but actually there's a whole bunch of us on Twitch called the Live Coders team. And we do a lot of really cool, fun stuff. And so if you go to I think it's livecoders.dev, you can check it out. Okay, so what we have here is Luis AI. This is if you just go to www.luis.ai, you can go and check out the actual website. This is what we're going to be using to build. And the best part is you can actually start using it without paying anything. It's actually got a 10,000 requests, I think, per month for free. And so it's pretty incredible. And so like Sherman that I built here is actually running with it, and it's entirely free. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new app for conversation. Let's see. We're going to create a new app like this, and we'll create a name. Let's see, what should we call it? How about Microsoft Build AI No Code? Oops, there we go. And the description will say, how about a test MS Build AI app? And then we'll press done. And so now it'll show you guys a little bit about how Luis works as an AI. It says design your schema, build your model, improve your app, and a lot of that is really just a lot of complex words for we want to build out what example sentences map to certain actions. Like we want it to maybe say reserve a hotel or rent a car or book a flight. Then we can have a bunch of different example sentences, like book a flight to Seattle would be an example sentence or utterances that then map to book a flight. And so we design that schema, and then we can build a model, which is kind of like taking the data and then mapping it to those kind of outputs and then giving it into the AI, which I can show you how we can do that without writing any code. And then the coolest part about AI is that as you start generating more of these example sentences, the AI gets better at understanding it. And so this is what we're going to do. We just go to build, and then to build our weather app, we want to ask it a bunch of different questions, right? It's like what's the weather in Seattle, or what's the weather in Philadelphia or New York? So then what's cool about this is you can actually get started without even doing too much configuration at all. There's a bunch of configured pre-built modules or intents. So there's things on the calendar like find the calendar meeting, or there's communication ones where it's like call back someone. And these are just basically example sentences that Microsoft set up for you. So then you don't have to come up with all the example sentences. You have them already built in. So the one that we're looking for is query weather, anything that has to do with weather. And when you add that, then it's going to add 100 examples. These are 100 example sentences that are about the weather. And if we want our bot to understand the difference between when we're talking about the weather, like Sherman here, he knows that when I'm not talking about him or anything else, then he won't respond. But when I'm talking about the weather, then he'll know to respond to the actual weather query. And so what we want to do is add a couple different examples that are sentences that have nothing to do with the weather. So we're going to click none here, and then we'll add in a bunch of different sentences. Here we go. I have a couple of sentences that are listed here. Okay, so we want to add, because we're competing against 100 different examples of weather sentences, we want to add a bunch. Like, let's all try building a smart bot. Or how about my dog? Like, beagles are super cute. What should I get my mother for her birthday? And if you have typos, that's okay too. What color are the walls? Why is the sky blue? Or when is Halloween? Type a test utterance. Or watermelon is my favorite fruit. And who's the cutest puppy in the world? I'm literally just training AI right now. Basically, I'm just typing a whole bunch of different example sentences, and then we're getting our model ready, our data ready. How about we add a couple more? Like, what's up? How are you today? Or this dog is so fluffy. AI is cool and fun. And maybe one more, like, my favorite food is lasagna. I think this has become a theme now for me. Lasagna is so good. All right, so now if we go back to the intents, we'll see how many we've added. All right, we've added 14 different examples of sentences that aren't anything to do with asking about the weather. So now all we have to do is click train. And then in a couple moments, it'll be done. Oh, it's finished. Holy cram. All right, we're going to test this out. We click test. And then let's see if this worked. How about we ask, what's the weather in Seattle? Would you look at that? It recognized it as a weather query. Or how about, let's see, anyone can AI. And oh, would you look at that? And then it recognized that as none, as a nothing intent. And so if you dig in, if you click on it, then you can see kind of like the confidence, like how confident it was that that phrase was about the weather versus not. And we can do even better. So what would be really cool is if we can make a weather app that not just recognizes what our intents are, but the specific parts of the phrase or our conversation that might be relevant to what we wanted to do. So like if we wanted to know whether or not it was talking about the weather and the city that we're actually talking about. And the magic of Luis here is that you can actually do exactly that. Let me show you. Ooh, I'm gonna go to entities. I think I have to refresh. I can't figure out, there's like a new interface. I can't actually get rid of this tab easily. Here we go. Damn it. This is cool. They're updating Luis right now. All right, so now what we're gonna do is after we go to entities, we're going to add a pre-built entity. And so a pre-built entity means it's like pre-built recognitions for different types of phrases or parts inside the sentence. And so it might be things like age or the date. Like if you wanted to create a bot with AI that puts in an appointment on a calendar, then you can do that with like date, time, or dimensions like lengths or email addresses. But this is the one that we're looking for, geography, because this will let us recognize whether or not a part of a sentence is a city or a county or a state or a province or a country or a continent or place of interest. And what's cool about this is, you know how we had to train our AI before with the intents? After we add an entity, we don't even have to do that. We can just go straight to test and then, add entity completed. All right. I wonder. Oh no, I think I clicked refresh and then it disappeared. Okay, let's test again. All right, so now what we can do is we can say, the cool part about the AI is that you can phrase all of your sentences differently like a normal conversation. And instead of just having a specific phrase pattern, like what's the weather in Seattle, we can say like, tell me the weather in Seattle. And then it says query weather. And because we added the entity for geography, check this out. If you take a look, I don't know if you can see it, I'll zoom in. You can see that there's other entities and it recognized the entity as Seattle, which means when you get this data from Azure, then you can create a weather app and train the AI and everything without writing any code and just giving it a whole bunch of example sentences and then improving on it. And you'll be able to recognize cities and what action the user really wanted to do right off the bat. And so to integrate it with your actual app, like another product or mobile app or whatnot, then all you have to do is use Luis AI web endpoint. Like you just make a web call with what the phrase is and what you get back is kind of like a JSON object or any sort of like this exact data that you'll see with the confidence and the geography and everything. And so what if we wanted to do more than just that, right? It's like if we wanted to do more than just the weather app and do something more fully encompassing, kind of like Sherman, then let me show you. We can create what's a custom intent, not just a pre-built one with the calendars and the commands and everything. We go back to intents, and maybe we wanted to do like a food ordering app, right? Then maybe we can check the weather and order food at the same time. So we're going to create a custom intent this time, and we'll name it food order. All right, that sounds pretty good. And then, just as we did before with the other example sentences or utterances, we're going to add a bunch of sentences for food order. And here, let's see, what are some food sentences? I can say, how many eggs should I make? Or, Mom, I want a sandwich. And Dad, can you make me pancakes for breakfast? Or I would like 10 lasagnas because I'm super hungry. Or get me 1 taco and order me 5 pizzas, please. And will you get me 5 waffles? How about a couple more? How about if we're really, really hungry, we might say like, I would like an order of 50 hot dogs, please. Dogs can, like, who can eat 50 hot dogs unless you're in like a food eating contest? Please order me some breakfast. Oh, all right, here we go. What are the best places to get dinner? Typos really don't matter in example sentences, by the way. I've tried. It's cool. All right, and maybe 3 more. I got like, do you like mango bubble tea? Does anybody here like mango bubble tea? I love mango bubble tea. Or what time is lunch? Is it lunchtime for anybody out there? All right, and now like some food. I think that's pretty good. We got a bunch of intents in here now, right? Oh yeah, we got like 13 example sentences for food order versus none versus query weather. That's not bad. So because these are still very, very few examples, we still might run into the AI thinking that some of our sentences and queries or phrases might still be asking about the weather. But as we get closer to having these be much more evenly distributed, then it'll be much more accurate. But let's give this a try anyway. Let's try this. How about let's see. We want to make sure that the weather's still working, so we can say, can you tell me the weather in, let's see, how about Australia? In Sydney, please. And then, ooh, look at that. It recognized that it's a query weather, and it recognized that it's talking about Sydney. And let's see, how about, I would like some bacon for breakfast. Ooh, it recognized that as a food order. Isn't that amazing? And let me show you one other cool thing before we run out of time that you can also do, because I showed you guys what the entities are with the cities, right? And so we built a pre-built entity for cities, but we can do even more. So down here, there's also number, which will recognize when you're talking about specific numbers, like how many bacons or pancakes you want. And then we're going to add a second one for key phrases. So key phrases are kind of like bacon or breakfast or any sort of like nouns that might be inside your text that might be very interesting to do. And so now that we added it, this means we'll be able to, because we don't even have to train it, this is going to be really cool. Now we can say something like please order me 5 pizzas for dinner. And then it recognized that as a food order. But not only that, it recognized the number 5 in the other entities. Imagine getting this data right into your app, just like that. And key phrases, pizzas. It's like 5 pizzas with a food order entity. You can make an app. You can totally make an app. We can all make an app with this, right? And we don't even have to know how like the inner workings of everything happens inside the AI. We're just like talking to a chatbot literally, and then training it and being like, hey, learn what I'm trying to say. And then you'll be able to do stuff like, hey Sherman, tell me something funny, please. I wonder if he'll actually get a joke. Hey Sherman, tell me a joke.
Why did the barber win the race? He took a shortcut.
Oh my goodness. And so with that, now I hope you guys saw the power of Luis and the AI and how easy it is for us to actually get started with AI. It doesn't have to be very scary or anything. Really, anybody can use AI and have it start empowering you to do more apps, more interesting things, and even more greater things. And so I hope you guys try it out. If you guys are interested, it is luis.ai, www.luis.ai. And if you're interested in learning more about other stuff like this in Azure, then you can check out my Azure Developer YouTube series. I have a couple among a bunch of different YouTube videos. I have a bunch explaining stuff like Sherman and a bunch of other services, like we've trained a Halloween candy recognizer using the computer vision service to recognize like what different candies are just by looking at it, and all sorts. The kind of things that you can do with Azure and AI is incredible. And so thank you guys again so much for hanging out. I think we have some time for Q&A, right?
Definitely. We have some questions coming from our viewers. So thank you so much if you're engaged in the questions. We have some folks answering them in text, but I also wanted to bring some live to you, InstaFluff. One of the questions was around internationalization and other languages. So have you only ever built something in Luis AI with English? Can you do other languages even?
Oh yeah, totally. So when you create your app, so if you imagine when you're creating the app, you can actually set them for each language. So when you create like a new app for conversation, then you can set the different language. So right now it supports English, and that's the one that we built it for. But you can do Chinese, French, French Canadian, Spanish, Spanish Mexican. Like you can do all sorts, like Japanese, Korean, Dutch. Like there's a bunch of different languages, and the example sentences will trying to optimize for that language.
Very cool. And you were uploading, one sentence at a time, and you mentioned that Luis AI has, 100 sentences about weather and we only uploaded 9 or whatever. Can you upload a file of sentences? Like maybe you get, I don't know, your little brother or little sister to create a file of sentences for you and you can upload those?
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I haven't looked that deep into it. I just needed to get it working enough to actually build Sherman, but I'm pretty sure you can. There's actually also another service called the Q&A Maker, and it works very similar to this, and it's cool because you can basically upload a PDF file of just like here's a questions and answers PDF,
Like a
and then it
fact.
creates a chatbot for you.
Awesome.
Like no code at all. It's pretty incredible what you can do.
That's awesome. And speaking of other types of things,
My name is
earlier-
Sherman. I sometimes listen to what InstaFluff tells me to do.
Thank you, Sherman. In an earlier Student Zone session, we had Jim Bennett showing us how you can integrate cognitive services, specifically text analytics and recognizing speech to text, in with Python. And he did like a quick little app there. So what's the difference between using like Luis AI or the Q&A Maker and using the cognitive services APIs?
The cognitive services are kind of what Luis is built on, and for me, like to get Sherman to understand everything, I actually hook up multiple services. So Luis AI is just the understanding part that says, okay, I'm going to. It's like one of the things as part of the cognitive services, but Luis will kind of understand and map the phrases or sentences to a specific intent. Cognitive services as a whole, there's text analysis where you can get like sentiment analysis values or certain like key phrases that are meant to be specifically for like large text versus like Luis being like just common conversational phrases.
Right.
There's also like speech recognizer and as well as a text to speech
Right.
in there as well. And so one of the things that we used the cognitive services for is to translate in Twitch chat in real time. So like we have a chat translator bot in my Twitch channel, and it actually recognizes what language the chat messages are, and it's super fast. And so it's able to actually translate it and then say, hey, this is the language that we detected, and here's the translation in real
Right.
time.
So that kind of answers one of the questions that we just got, which is how can we build a multilingual bot? So like the same bot to answer questions in 2 or 3 languages. So you're saying for that, you probably want to head over into cognitive services and use that API
Yep.
instead?
Yeah, and there's actually in the text analysis or recognizer or the translation services, there's actually 2 parts in the translation service. One is actually for like you can set it to just detect the language, and there's one that actually does the full like detect language and translation. And so if you're only looking to see if like you want to know what language they're talking,
Yeah.
it'll cost less, and it's just like that's just the little part that it'll do.
Got it. Okay. Someone's asking, inside of the intents list view, there was an add feature column. Could you talk a little bit about what that does?
The add feature column. You mean in here?
Possibly.
I'm not
It was in the
sure.
intents list view.
Intents list view. I'm not sure if I see it.
Okay.
Maybe it's inside weather. Or maybe they mean entities. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
it might have been.
Huh.
That's okay. We do have another
Okay.
question. How would you rate the outcome to make it better next time? So you mentioned like sometimes you might say something and it didn't really get it right. How do you help that?
So let me show you an example sentence that it might not be so good at, and then I'll show you how you can actually retrain it and add more. And
Awesome.
so all of the phrases that you've been putting in here are actually inside. Oh, here it is. Oops, not in here. Inside the build goes into and it keeps that list of all the text and phrases that you've put in. And so what you can do is you can add more text like I've been doing and saying something like how much are the pancakes? And then okay, so here, even though we might be talking about food, it recognized that as none. And so you can actually change this intent to be a food order instead. And so when you do that, then I need to figure out how to close this now. Batch testing panel, single testing. Oh, okay. So when you do this, start. Uh-oh. Hold on. They changed the UI on me. And so
We
I'm
did
trying
just
to,
get some updates just for
yeah, I
build.
think they updated it recently. I actually really like the new update look though. Okay, and so when you do that, then it'll have a red button on the train, and that means it's got new phrases or new example utterances that it needs to retrain the AI on. And so then you just click it again.
Awesome.
And what else you can do is if you go back and you have to kind of like reorganize all of these, you can click on each intent, and it'll show you all of the phrases that you've entered in the past, and you can go ahead and click these, and you can change the actual intent if you want. So you can say like move to like query whether or none.
Awesome.
And so yeah, pretty nice and very easy.
We do have another question around actually consuming this, right? So you mentioned that we can take what you built here and, create a web app or something that actually consumes it. So is that a REST API? Is it, how
Yep.
does that work?
Yeah, so it's a REST API, and what you have to do is you click this publish, and then staging slot means it's like a test slot, and production is what you're going to look for to use when you're actually using it out in like a production level product or an app. But you can use both, and once you do this and publish it, then you'll get the endpoint plus the API key that you need to send to that endpoint. So then you'll be able to use this. And
So that means
it's
it
just like
doesn't
a
have
REST
to be an
API
app
call.
on, sorry, that means it doesn't have to be a web app on Azure. It can be any web app, right?
Right. Yeah, it can be anywhere. So you can actually even just create a web page and have it call the Azure endpoint. And as long as you're like keeping your keys, API key secure, then yeah, you can have anything that calls into the internet.
Awesome. We do have a question on how do intents relate to entities? That is, you can create related intents according to which entities are identified.
I'm not exactly sure. Like I don't work on the Luis team, but I think what they do is like entities are still like they recognize the specific parts inside a sentence. And so I think they're like two separate like neural nets or
Right.
like detections that they do. So like entities will detect like parts of a sentence, and then the intent is like the overall arching net that might recognize certain types of entities as food orders, but it might not necessarily have anything to do with it. It just depends on how the training happened. At least that's my guess.
We saw something similar in Jim's session where it recognized Jim as a name because he said, "My name is Jim." And so cognitive services recognized that he was likely saying JIM with a capital J and not GYM, like the gym that you might work out in.
Wow.
So I think that's related to that entity and intent bit right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, I think that's pretty close to the time that we have today. We really appreciate all of your questions that you've asked. We do have additional resources on our GitHub repo, aka.ms/students@build. And I'm actually going to show off this slide here because in addition to all of the resources that we have for the Student Zone, we also have a number of resources for students across the entire year. We've got Learn modules and learning paths for students. We actually give Azure to students for free with a $100 credit without having to have a credit card. Don't forget about the Imagine Cup and the Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador program. You should check out all of them. And if you're not a student, let the students in your life know about it. I really, really want to take the time to thank you, InstaFluff, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Taught us so much, and I'm really excited to continue learning from you on your Azure YouTube series and on your Twitch channel.
Cool. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of MS Build.
Awesome. And if you haven't already, feel free to continue to check out the rest of our Student Zone sessions at mybuild.microsoft.com/student-zone. And we have a lot more content coming to you over the next, I don't know, what is it, like 30 hours left?
Wow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much, everybody.